Hands off the vehicle. Step back.
What are you doing in this lot?
I'm making a phone call. Is there a problem?
Yeah, we got calls about somebody casing cars.
Why do you think I'm the one?
Because you don't belong here.
I'm Special Agent Marcus Thompson, FBI. My supervisor's been listening to all this.
You Special Agent...
Badge number...
The body cam was recording, the phone line was open, and the FBI supervisor, listening to every word, had already dispatched agents before Officer Derek Rawlings even touched his holster. What this cop didn't know, couldn't know, was that the black man he had just ordered away from a stolen Audi at gunpoint was a 12-year federal agent assigned to the Civil Rights Division, the same division that prosecutes cops exactly like him. 15 years in federal prison, badge stripped, pension gone, career erased, and every second of his destruction was documented by his own camera while his victim's boss listened live. The Oakdale Crossing Shopping Plaza occupied 12 acres of prime real estate in one of Atlanta's wealthiest suburbs. Luxury SUVs and European sedans filled the parking lot in neat rows. The Saturday afternoon sun reflected off polished storefront windows, Neiman Marcus, Louis Vuitton, a Tesla dealership at the far end. This was the kind of place where valets remembered your name and security guards nodded politely as you passed. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. But if you're new here, hit that like and subscribe button. These stories needs to be shared, and your support helps expose the truth. Special Agent Marcus Thompson had been coming here for 3 years, ever since he transferred to the Atlanta field office. His dry cleaner was here. His barber was 2 blocks away. His Audi Q7, black, paid off, registered in his name since 2019, sat in the same parking spot he always used, 3rd row from the entrance, under the shade of an ornamental oak. 12 years with the FBI. Specialization in public corruption and civil rights violations, commendations from 3 directors. Before that, 4 years as a U.S. Army military police officer, 2 deployments, honorable discharge. Before that, Howard University Law School, top 10% of his class, law review, recruited by the Bureau before he even took the bar exam. He had spent his career investigating officers who abused their authority. He knew the patterns, the pretextual stops, the fabricated suspicions, the assumption that certain people didn't belong in certain places. He had built cases against cops in 6 states. He had testified in federal court more times than he could count. He had seen body cam footage that would make most people sick. None of it prepared him for being on the other side of the lens. Thompson stood beside his driver's side door, phone pressed to his ear, finishing a weekend check-in with Deputy Director Angela Chen. Routine call, case updates, administrative details. He was wearing a fitted navy polo, khakis, clean fade. His posture was relaxed. His credentials were in the center console, 6 feet away. "Anything else before Monday?" Chen asked through the phone. That's when the patrol car pulled into the lot. Thompson noticed it immediately. The speed was wrong, too fast for a casual pass-through. The cruiser cut across 2 lanes and angled toward his row. It stopped 20 feet behind his Audi, positioned to block any exit. "Hold on," Thompson said quietly. "I've got a local unit approaching." "Approaching you?" "Looks like it." The officer who stepped out was white, mid-30s, average build. His nameplate read Rawlings. His hand moved to his holster before his feet hit the pavement. "Stay on the line," Chen said. Her voice had shifted, no longer administrative, alert. "I'm not going anywhere." Rawlings crossed the distance in aggressive strides. The Axon Body 2 on his chest captured everything: the parking lot, the Audi, the black man in the navy polo standing motionless beside the driver door. The wide-angle lens created mild fisheye distortion at the edges, but the center of the frame was crystal clear. Thompson lowered the phone to his side. He didn't hang up. He didn't put it in his pocket. He held it loosely, microphone pointed outward, the line still open. "Hands off the vehicle." Rawlings was 3 feet away now. "Step back. What are you doing in this lot?" Thompson met his eyes, calm, controlled, unflinching. "I'm making a phone call. Is there a problem?" Rawlings' hand tightened on his holster. The body cam captured the movement, fingers curling around the grip, thumb resting on the retention strap. His weight shifted forward, aggressive, predatory. "Yeah, we got calls about somebody casing cars." Thompson didn't move. His phone remained at his side, the line to Deputy Director Chen still open. 1,400 miles away, in the J. Edgar Hoover Building in Washington, Chen was already reaching for her desk phone to contact the Atlanta field office. "Why do you think I'm the one?" The question was measured, neutral, the tone of a man who had conducted hundreds of interviews and knew exactly how to let silence do its work. Rawlings' lip curled. The body cam caught the sneer in high definition. "Because you don't belong here." 4 words. The officer didn't elaborate, didn't need to. The meaning was clear to everyone who would later watch the footage. The prosecutors, the jury, the millions who would see it replayed on news broadcasts across the country. Thompson tilted his head slightly. "I'm Special Agent Marcus Thompson, FBI. My credentials are in the vehicle. My supervisor has been listening to this entire conversation." He raised the phone slowly, deliberately, so the body cam could see it. "Badge number and precinct, now." Something flickered across Rawlings' face. The body cam caught it, a microsecond of doubt, quickly buried under 11 years of habit. He had heard claims like this before. Everyone was somebody when they got stopped. Everyone had a lawyer, a connection, a reason why the rules didn't apply to them. He didn't believe it. "Sure you are." Rawlings drew his weapon. The Glock cleared the holster and leveled at Thompson's chest. "Hands where I can see them. On the vehicle. Now." Thompson didn't flinch. His hands rose slowly, phone still in his right, left palm open and empty. He turned and placed both palms flat on the warm metal of the Audi's roof. The position was familiar. He had seen it from the other side countless times. "You're making a mistake," he said. His voice remained level. "A federal crime." "Shut up." Rawlings moved closer. The body cam tightened, Thompson's back filling the center, his hands visible on the roof, his head turned just enough to keep the officer in peripheral view. Then Rawlings leaned in. His mouth moved close to Thompson's ear. The body cam's microphone was 6 inches away, designed to capture exactly these moments, the whispered threats, the quiet cruelties that officers thought no one would ever hear. He said a single word. The audio technicians who later enhanced the footage confirmed it within hours. A racial slur, barely above a breath, delivered with the casual contempt of someone who had said it many times before. 1,400 miles away, Deputy Director Angela Chen heard it clearly through the open phone line. "I have agents en route," she said, her voice cutting through Thompson's speaker, loud enough for Rawlings to hear. "Officer, you are being directed to holster your weapon and step away from Special Agent Thompson immediately." Rawlings froze. The body cam captured his sudden stillness, the Glock still raised, his breathing audible on the microphone, his eyes cutting toward the phone in Thompson's hand. "Who the hell is that?" "Deputy Director Angela Chen, FBI, Headquarters." Thompson's voice hadn't changed, still calm, still controlled. "She's been listening since before you got out of your car." The sound of sirens reached the parking lot, distant at first, then closer, then unmistakable. Rawlings' weapon hand began to tremble. The body cam recorded every vibration. The first vehicle to arrive wasn't local. A black Chevrolet Suburban with federal plates cut across the parking lot at speed, followed by a second. They angled to block the exits. Not Rawlings' cruiser, but the lanes leading out of the plaza. Standard containment protocol. 4 agents emerged, dark suits, credentials visible, hands near weapons but not drawn. Special Agent in Charge David Okonkwo approached first. He had supervised Thompson for 3 years. He had received Deputy Director Chen's call 90 seconds after Rawlings drew his weapon. "Officer," Okonkwo's voice carried across the parking lot, "lower your weapon, step back from the agent." Rawlings hadn't moved. His Glock was still raised, still pointed at Thompson's back. The body cam captured his hesitation, the rapid calculations of a man realizing his situation had fundamentally changed. "This is a local matter." "This is a federal agent." Okonkwo stopped 10 feet away. His credentials were in his left hand, held high enough for the body cam to record. "Federal Bureau of Investigation, Special Agent, Civil Rights Division." He looked at Rawlings one final time. The body cam was still running. It would capture Thompson's words with the same clarity it had captured everything else. "I've prosecuted 37 officers for civil rights violations. You're number 38.
The FBI's investigation moved with unusual speed. The body cam footage was in federal hands within 2 hours, downloaded, preserved, and flagged as primary evidence. The phone recording from Deputy Director Chen's line was already archived in Washington, time-stamped and authenticated. But the footage only told part of the story. The investigation would reveal the rest. Officer Derek Rawlings had served with Oakdale Police Department for 11 years. His personnel file was unremarkable on its surface. No major commendations, no formal disciplinary actions, a career of apparent mediocrity that had allowed him to operate without scrutiny. The complaints told a different story. 22 formal complaints had been filed against Rawlings over his career. 22 citizens had documented concerns serious enough to put in writing. 14 involved traffic stops of black drivers. 6 involved allegations of excessive force. 2 involved racial slurs, heard by witnesses, reported immediately, dismissed for lack of physical evidence. 22 complaints, 0 sustained findings, 0 disciplinary actions. The FBI subpoenaed Rawlings's departmental records, patrol logs, and personal devices within 72 hours. What they found was systematic. His patrol car's GPS history showed a pattern. For 3 years, Rawlings had been logging off duty at his precinct, then driving his personal vehicle to affluent suburbs outside his jurisdiction: Oakdale, Buckhead, Sandy Springs, neighborhoods with expensive homes and expensive cars, and black residents who could afford them. His mobile data terminal searches told the same story. He had been running plates on luxury vehicles driven by black motorists, dozens of queries with no corresponding incident reports, no calls for service, no documented reason for the searches. His personal phone contained text messages that federal prosecutors would later describe as a roadmap of racial animus. Conversations with other officers, jokes about hunting in wealthy neighborhoods, complaints about black families taking over areas that used to be nice. A group chat called Thin Blue Line, where Rawlings and 6 colleagues shared memes, complaints, and strategies for stops that would be difficult to challenge. One text, sent 8 months before the Thompson incident, was particularly damning. "Got another one in Oakdale today. N in a Porsche. Made him sit on the curb for 40 minutes while I verified registration. Love watching them squirm." The FBI identified 14 victims from Rawlings's pattern, men and women who had been stopped, detained, questioned, and released without charges. Most had filed no complaints. They had assumed nothing would come of it, that the system would protect its own. Now, the system had turned. The Department of Justice authorized federal charges within 3 weeks: deprivation of rights under color of law, assault with a deadly weapon against a federal officer, filing false police reports, conspiracy to violate civil rights, a charge that expanded to include 2 other officers in the text chain who had participated in coordinated stops. The Oakdale police chief resigned before the indictments were announced. The deputy chief followed. Internal Affairs launched reviews of every complaint filed in the previous decade, not just against Rawlings, but against every officer named in the group chat. Agent Thompson gave his statement to federal prosecutors over 2 days. He walked them through every second of the encounter, the approach, the weapon, the slur, the phone call that had captured it all. His testimony was clinical, precise, devastating. The prosecutors asked him how he had remained so calm. He said, "I've seen that footage before. Different officers, different victims, same pattern. I knew exactly what was happening. I knew exactly how it would end." The body cam footage was released to the public 6 weeks after the incident. It accumulated 40 million views in 72 hours.
The federal trial took place in the Northern District of Georgia. The courtroom was filled to capacity every day. Journalists, civil rights advocates, law enforcement officials monitoring the proceedings, and citizens who had driven hours to witness what many called a reckoning. The prosecution's case was built on synchronized evidence. They played the body cam footage on the first day, letting the jury watch the entire encounter without commentary. Then they played Deputy Director Chen's phone recording, the same moments captured from Thompson's side, the slur even clearer through the phone's microphone than it had been on the body cam. They presented the shopping plaza's security footage, a wide shot showing the parking lot, the Audi, the patrol car's aggressive approach, Thompson standing motionless beside his vehicle, Rawlings closing distance with his hand already on his holster. They presented witness testimony, a 63-year-old retired teacher who had been walking to her car when the stop began, a college student who had recorded 30 seconds on her phone before fleeing to her vehicle, a shopping plaza security guard who had watched from the Tesla dealership entrance, too uncertain to intervene. They presented the digital forensics, 3 years of GPS data, hundreds of plate searches with no documented purpose, the text messages displayed on screens large enough for the jury to read every word. 5 other black men testified about their encounters with Rawlings. A surgeon stopped while driving to the hospital, an attorney detained for 40 minutes during a lunch break, a retired military officer questioned about the ownership of his own vehicle. Each story followed the same pattern. Each man described the same phrases, the same posture, the same assumption that they didn't belong. The defense strategy collapsed under the weight of documentation. Rawlings' attorney argued misunderstanding, claimed his client had been following department protocols for suspicious vehicle reports. The prosecutor responded by playing the body cam audio. "You don't belong here." "What protocol," the prosecutor asked, "instructs officers to determine who belongs in a public parking lot based on race?" The defense had no answer. Rawlings testified in his own defense. It lasted 4 hours. Under cross-examination, he claimed the text messages were jokes taken out of context. He claimed the plate searches were routine. He claimed he couldn't remember saying the slur captured on 2 separate recordings. The prosecutor played the audio again, then a third time. "Do you need to hear it once more, Officer Rawlings?" The jury deliberated for 4 hours. They returned with guilty verdicts on all counts. Rawlings stood motionless as the verdicts were read. The courtroom remained silent. There was no outburst, no dramatic reaction, just the mechanical process of justice documenting its conclusions. The judge scheduled sentencing for 6 weeks later. She denied bail, citing flight risk and the severity of the crimes. The defendant has demonstrated a pattern of conduct that represents a fundamental betrayal of public trust, she said. He used his badge as a weapon against the citizens he swore to protect. The court sees no reason to believe that pattern would not continue if he were released. Rawlings was led from the courtroom in handcuffs. His badge had been surrendered weeks earlier. His pension had been frozen. His 11-year career had ended in a parking lot, documented by his own camera, witnessed by an FBI supervisor 1,400 miles away. Agent Thompson sat in the gallery throughout the trial. He never testified emotionally. He never celebrated the verdict. When journalists asked for his reaction afterward, he gave the same answer he had given throughout the case. This is what accountability looks like. Nothing more, nothing less. The sentencing hearing drew the largest crowd of any proceeding in the case. Victim impact statements stretched across 3 hours. Men who had been stopped by Rawlings described the fear, the humiliation, the lasting damage of being treated as criminals in their own neighborhoods. The surgeon spoke of missing a surgery because Rawlings had detained him for 45 minutes over a suspicious Mercedes. A patient's procedure had been delayed. Complications followed. The attorney described the terror of having a weapon drawn during a traffic stop on his way to court. He had been late for a hearing. The judge had threatened sanctions before he could explain. The retired colonel talked about calling his wife during a stop, telling her which intersection he was at, just in case. In case of what? The prosecutor asked. In case I didn't come home. Thompson did not give an impact statement. He had never been physically harmed. He sat in the gallery as he had throughout the trial, his expression unchanged. The judge addressed Rawlings directly before delivering the sentence. You swore an oath to serve and protect all citizens equally. Instead, you used your authority to terrorize people based on the color of their skin. You drew your weapon on a federal agent because you could not imagine that a black man belonged in an affluent neighborhood. You did this not once, but dozens of times over the course of years, and your department did nothing. She paused. 15 years in federal prison, no possibility of parole. The civil settlement came 4 months later. The county, facing overwhelming evidence of systemic failure, agreed to pay $8.5 million. $3.5 million to Thompson, the remainder divided among 14 other documented victims. The settlement included no admission of wrongdoing, but the reforms attached to it spoke louder than any legal language. The Oakdale Police Department underwent complete restructuring. An independent oversight board was established with subpoena power. All officers were required to activate body cameras for any civilian contact. Database searches were logged and audited monthly. Complaints triggered automatic external review. The 2 officers named in the Rawlings text chain were terminated and charged. One pleaded guilty to conspiracy. The other awaits trial. Thompson returned to work within weeks of the incident. He continues to serve in the Civil Rights Division, investigating the same patterns of abuse he experienced that Saturday afternoon. He has given interviews sparingly, always returning to the same themes. Documentation saved me, he told one reporter. My credentials mattered, but the phone call mattered more. Deputy Director Chen heard everything in real time. There was nothing for Rawlings to fabricate, no report he could write that would contradict what she witnessed. He paused. Most people don't have an FBI supervisor on the line. That's why body cameras matter. That's why civilian recordings matter. The only thing that changes this pattern is evidence they can't deny. The body cam footage is now used in federal law enforcement training. Agencies across the country show it as an example of how bias manifests in split-second decisions. The approach, the assumption, the phrase that revealed everything. You don't belong here. 4 words that cost a man his badge, his pension, and 15 years of his life. Derek Rawlings is currently incarcerated at Federal Correctional Institution Jessup in Georgia. He will be eligible for release in 2039. His appeals have been denied twice. Marcus Thompson still drives the same black Audi Q7. He still shops at Oakdale Crossing on Saturday afternoons. He still parks in the 3rd row under the shade of the ornamental oak. The only difference now is the decal in his rear window. Small, unobtrusive, easy to miss unless you're looking. FBI.
Sir, I'm going to need to see some ID. Are you a guest here?
I just checked in 20 minutes ago, sir.
We got a call about someone who doesn't belong. You fit the description. Prove you're a guest.
Prove I'm a guest? I'm holding my room key. What more do you need?
That key card could be stolen for all I know. There's something off.
Deputy U.S. Marshal Terrence Cole.
Deputy Marshal Terrence Cole was in Chicago on federal assignment. Multi-agency fugitive task force. High-profile escaped convict. The kind of operation that required coordination between the Marshal's Service, FBI, and local law enforcement. He had checked into the Langham, Chicago 20 minutes earlier, received his room key card, and was walking toward the elevator when Officer Brett Hannigan intercepted him. Prove you're a guest. Cole held up the key card. That could be stolen. Cole maintained the composure that had carried him through 11 years of hunting dangerous fugitives. Then he reached into his jacket, produced his U.S. Marshal's badge, and asked the question that ended Hannigan's career. I'm Deputy U.S. Marshal Terrence Cole. I'm here on federal assignment. Now let me see your badge. The hotel security camera captured everything. The rookie who couldn't imagine a black man belonged in a luxury hotel. The federal agent who proved exactly where he belonged. $18.9 million. And a fugitive captured 3 days later by the marshal who wasn't supposed to fit the clientele. The Langham, Chicago occupied prime real estate in River North. A 5-star property where rooms started at $800 a night, and the lobby gleamed with marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and the quiet confidence of old money. The clientele expected discretion. They expected service. They expected to be surrounded by people who looked like them. Deputy U.S. Marshal Terrence Cole had arrived on a government reservation. Standard protocol for federal operations. The Marshal's Service booked rooms for task force personnel at approved properties. The Langham was on the list. His assignment was waiting. 11 years with the United States Marshal's Service. Fugitive Task Force. Over 200 high-profile apprehensions, escaped convicts, federal warrant subjects, the most dangerous individuals the justice system had lost track of. Before that, 5 years as a Baltimore PD detective. The Director's Award for Excellence in Fugitive Investigations. Certified Firearms Instructor. Defensive Tactics Trainer. Morgan State University. Bachelor's in Criminal Justice. Johns Hopkins. Master's in Homeland Security. Raised in West Baltimore by a single mother who worked 2 jobs. First in his family to graduate college. The tailored charcoal suit was new. Purchased for courtroom testimony 2 months earlier. The leather overnight bag held everything he needed for the operation. 3 days in Chicago. Early morning briefings. Coordinated surveillance. The capture of a man who had escaped federal custody 6 weeks ago. Check-in had been seamless. The concierge was professional, welcoming. Mr. Cole, we have you in room 1847. Excellent view of the river. Is there anything else you need this evening? Just some rest before an early morning. Of course. Elevators are to your left. Have a wonderful stay. He had walked 20 feet toward the elevator bank when he noticed the woman watching him. Diane Mercer, 62 years old. Penthouse suite. The kind of guest who measured her worth by the deference others showed her. She stood near the reception desk, eyes tracking Cole's movement across the lobby with an expression that suggested offense. She approached the front desk manager, a nervous man in his 30s named Gerald Patterson. That man. She gestured toward Cole. He doesn't look like he belongs here. Ma'am, I don't recognize him. He doesn't fit in with the clientele. I think you should do something. Patterson looked toward Cole. He saw a black man in a tailored suit walking toward the elevators. He saw what Diane Mercer saw. He did not check the registration system. He did not verify whether Cole was a guest. He did not consider that a man walking calmly through the lobby with a keycard in his hand might actually be staying at the hotel. He picked up the phone. I'd like to report a suspicious individual in the lobby. Black male, late 30s, gray suit. He doesn't appear to be a guest. Officer Brett Hannigan was moonlighting hotel security that evening. 10 weeks on the force. Eager to prove himself. He responded within 3 minutes. The hotel security camera captured the encounter from above, wide angle, both subjects visible. Cole stood near the elevator bank, room keycard in his right hand, overnight bag at his feet. Hannigan approached from the left, posture aggressive, hand already resting near his belt. "Sir, I'm going to need to see some ID. Are you a guest here?" Cole turned. His expression shifted from mild confusion to the controlled assessment of someone who recognized exactly what was happening. "I just checked in 20 minutes ago, sir." He held up the keycard. Room 1847. The magnetic strip gleaming under the chandelier light. Hannigan didn't acknowledge it. "We got a call about someone who doesn't belong. You fit the description. Prove you're a guest." "Prove I'm a guest?" Cole's eyes narrowed. "I'm holding my room key. What more do you need? That key card could be stolen for all I know." "Stolen?" Cole's voice remained level, the composure that had carried him through 200 fugitive apprehensions. "You think I stole a key card and decided to loiter in the lobby rather than go to the room? There's something off here." The only thing off is an officer questioning a paying guest for standing near an elevator. Hannigan stepped closer. His body cam was running. Axon Body 2, standard issue, recording everything his chest faced. The hotel security camera captured the same encounter from above. "I'm going to need you to come with me to verify your status." "My status is registered guest." You can verify that by walking 50 feet to the front desk and asking them to check the system. That's not how this works. Actually, that's exactly how this works. Standard hotel protocol. Guest verification through the registration database. Takes 30 seconds. I don't need you telling me protocol. Apparently someone does. Cole's overnight bag sat at his feet. His keycard remained visible in his hand. His tailored suit, the kind of attire that should have signaled legitimacy in a luxury property, apparently signaled nothing to an officer who had already decided what he was looking at. "Sir, where did you get that keycard?" "From the concierge. 20 minutes ago, after he processed my government reservation." "Government reservation. I'm here on federal business." Hannigan's lip curled. The security camera captured the sneer. "Federal business. Right. And I'm the FBI director." "You're not. But I'm happy to wait while you verify my credentials." "Your credentials?" "My credentials." Cole's hand moved slowly toward his jacket, the deliberate motion of someone who understood how encounters could escalate. "I'm reaching into my inside pocket. I'm going to show you something that will clarify this situation." Hannigan's hand moved to his weapon. Not drawing, but ready. "Move slowly." "I always do." Other guests had stopped to watch. A couple near the bar. A family returning from dinner. A businessman with his phone raised, already recording. The lobby of the Langham Chicago had become a stage. The security cameras were rolling. The phones were recording. And a 10-week rookie was about to discover that the black man he had decided didn't belong was more law enforcement than he would ever be. Cole's hand emerged from his jacket holding a leather credential case. He opened it. The badge gleamed under the chandelier light. United States Marshal Service. "I'm Deputy U.S. Marshal Terrence Cole." The words landed with the weight of 11 years and 200 apprehensions. "I'm here on federal assignment. Multi-agency fugitive task force. My operation briefing is at 5 a.m. tomorrow." He held the badge steady. The security camera captured it clearly. So did Hannigan's body cam. So did the phones of guests who had stopped to watch. "Now let me see your badge." Hannigan's face had gone pale. The sneer was gone. The certainty was gone. What remained was the dawning recognition of catastrophe. There was a call. Badge number. Now. And your supervisor's name." "Sir, I was responding to a complaint." "I didn't ask about the complaint. I asked for your badge number and your supervisor's name. Those are simple requests. A 10-week rookie should be able to handle them." Hannigan's hand had dropped from his weapon. It hung at his side now. The posture of someone who had lost control of a situation they never should have initiated. "Badge 7734. My supervisor is Sergeant Morrison." "Sergeant Morrison." Cole produced his phone with his free hand. "I'm going to make a call now. You're going to stand there and not move." He dialed a number from memory. "Commander? It's Cole. I've got a situation at the hotel. I need you to contact the Chicago field office and send someone to the Langham. I also need you to reach out to Chicago PD's duty supervisor." He listened briefly. "Yes, sir. I'm fine." but there's going to be an incident report, and the officer involved is going to need representation. He ended the call. The hotel manager, a woman in her 50s named Victoria Chun, rushed over from the reception area. Her face carried the horror of someone watching her property become the subject of national news. "Sir, I am so sorry. I don't know what happened here. What happened is your staff called police on a registered guest without bothering to check whether he was registered. That's not our protocol." "Then your protocol failed. I checked in 20 minutes ago. My name is in your system. My room number is in your system. My federal agency affiliation is in your system. All anyone had to do was look." The front desk manager made a call without verification. That's a training failure. That's a policy failure. That's going to be a legal matter. Chen's face went gray. "We will cooperate fully with any." "You will. And you'll start by providing me with copies of all security footage from the past hour. Lobby cameras, elevator bank, front desk, everything." "Of course." Cole turned back to Hannigan. "You're going to wait here until your supervisor arrives. You're not going to touch your body cam. You're not going to delete anything. You're not going to contact anyone except through official channels. I was just doing my job. Your job was to verify a complaint before acting on it. You didn't do that. Your job was to treat a paying guest with basic dignity. You didn't do that either. Your job was to recognize that a black man in a nice suit might actually belong in a nice hotel." Cole picked up his overnight bag. "You failed at all of it." Blue lights appeared through the lobby windows. A Chicago PD supervisor responding to the call Cole had triggered through his command chain. Behind them, the elevator chimed. More guests emerging. More phones appearing. More witnesses to what had happened in the lobby of the Langham Chicago. "That's your sergeant," Cole said. "This is about to become a very long night for you." Sergeant David Morrison arrived first. 20-year veteran. The kind of officer who recognized disaster the moment he walked through the doors. He saw the deputy marshal badge still in Cole's hand. He saw Hannigan standing frozen near the elevators. He saw the hotel manager wringing her hands. He saw the guests with phones raised. "Deputy Marshal Cole?" "Sergeant Morrison. Can you tell me what happened?" Cole walked him through it. The check-in. The approach. The demand to prove he was a guest. The dismissal of his keycard. The accusation that it could be stolen. The sneer when he mentioned federal business. Morrison listened without interrupting. When Cole finished, he turned to Hannigan. "Officer, is that account accurate?" "Sarge, I was responding to a call." "Is what he said accurate?" Silence. "Your body cam was running. The hotel has security footage. I'll have access to both within the hour." "Is what Deputy Marshal Cole said accurate?" Hannigan's voice was small. "Yes." Morrison closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, his expression had hardened. "You're relieved of your security detail. Return to the precinct. Do not discuss this with anyone. Internal Affairs will contact you." "Sarge, that's an order." Hannigan walked toward the exit. His 10-week career had effectively ended, though the paperwork would take longer. A second vehicle arrived, unmarked, federal plates. Deputy Commander Sarah Walsh, U.S. Marshals Service Chicago Field Office. She had received Cole's call and responded personally. "TC, you all right?" "I'm fine. But this hotel has some explaining to do." Walsh surveyed the scene with the practiced eye of someone who had seen institutional failures before. "Let's get the facts documented." Cole turned to Victoria Chun. "I want to know who made the call to police. I want to know what was said. And I want to know why no one checked whether I was a registered guest before assuming I was trespassing in your lobby." Chen's composure had cracked entirely. The front desk manager, Gerald Patterson, made the call. He said a guest complained about. About what? About someone who didn't look like they belonged. Didn't look like they belonged. Cole let the words hang. And he didn't think to check the registration system. He should have. It's policy. I don't know why he didn't. I do. The woman who had started it all was still in the lobby. Diane Mercer had watched the entire scene unfold from near the bar, her face cycling through confusion, concern, and finally, something approaching fear. Walsh noticed her. "Is that the guest who made the original complaint?" "I believe so," Chen confirmed. "We'll need to speak with her." Cole picked up his overnight bag for the second time that evening. "I'm going to my room now. The room I paid for. The room I was assigned 20 minutes ago. I have a briefing at 5 a.m. for a federal operation that doesn't care about any of this." He looked at Chun. "I don't want your apologies. I don't want a sweet upgrade. I want accountability. And I want your security footage preserved before anyone decides this incident should disappear." It will be preserved. You have my word. Your word. Cole walked toward the elevator. I've heard a lot of words tonight. None of them were, "I'm sorry for assuming you didn't belong." The elevator doors opened. He stepped inside. I'll be expecting that footage by morning. The doors closed. Deputy Marshal Terrence Cole finally reached his room, 47 minutes after checking in, and one federal civil rights case closer to changing how luxury hotels treated black guests. The investigation moved with the velocity of a case involving a federal law enforcement officer. The hotel security footage was in FBI hands within 24 hours. Hennigan's body cam provided a second angle. Guest phone recordings added at least 3 more perspectives. The front desk phone records confirmed the call to police. The registration system proved Cole had checked in before the encounter began. The evidence was overwhelming. The patterns revealed were worse. Officer Brett Hannigan had washed out of the police academy the first time. Attitude problems was the documented reason. Difficulty accepting correction, hostility toward female instructors, comments that raised concerns about bias. He should have been permanently disqualified. His uncle was a precinct captain. Hannigan got a second chance. He graduated near the bottom of his class. He was assigned to a district with minimal supervision. He started moonlighting hotel security within 6 weeks. His social media accounts told the rest of the story. Posts mocking diversity hires in law enforcement. Comments about certain people not belonging in nice places. Shares from accounts that trafficked in racial grievance and resentment. His stop records were surgical in their bias. 7 civilian contacts in 10 weeks. All 7 involved black or Hispanic individuals. 0 arrests. 0 citations. Just stops, demands for ID, questions about what people were doing in spaces Hannigan had decided they didn't belong. Gerald Patterson, the front desk manager who had called police, had done the same thing twice before. 2 black guests. 2 calls to police. 2 instances where verification through the registration system would have taken 30 seconds. 2 instances where he chose to call law enforcement instead. Both previous guests had complained to hotel management. Both complaints had been dismissed as misunderstandings. Diane Mercer's history emerged last and proved the most damaging. She had filed similar complaints at luxury establishments across 3 states. Black guests at country clubs. Hispanic staff at upscale restaurants. Anyone whose presence offended her expectation of what certain spaces should look like. 14 documented complaints over 5 years. 0 legitimate concerns. A pattern of weaponizing staff and police against minorities in spaces she considered hers. The Langham Chicago issued a statement within 72 hours, apologizing for the incident, announcing an internal review, committing to enhanced training. The U.S. Marshals Service issued its own statement, condemning the treatment of Deputy Marshal Cole, demanding accountability, making clear that attacks on federal agents, whether physical or dignitary, were attacks on the institution itself. The FBI Civil Rights Division opened a formal investigation. The charges under consideration: deprivation of rights under color of law, civil rights violations, conspiracy between the officer, the hotel, and the guest who had initiated the complaint. Cole provided testimony over 2 days. He walked through every moment of the encounter with the precision that had made him one of the Marshals Service's most effective investigators. When asked how he had remained calm while being interrogated in a hotel lobby, his answer made national news. "I've faced armed fugitives. I've entered buildings not knowing if I would come out. I've spent 11 years in situations where losing composure could cost lives. A rookie cop who couldn't imagine I belonged somewhere? That's not a threat. That's an inconvenience." The federal civil lawsuit was filed 8 weeks after the incident. Cole versus Hannigan, City of Chicago, the Langham Chicago, and Diane Mercer, Northern District of Illinois. The complaint was 54 pages long. The federal courtroom drew national attention. The case had become a symbol. A deputy U.S. Marshal interrogated in a luxury hotel lobby for the crime of being black while holding his own room key. The security footage was played first. Multiple angles synchronized. The jury watched Cole walk calmly toward the elevator. They watched Hannigan intercept him. They watched the keycard dismissed as possibly stolen. They watched the sneer. They watched the badge emerge. "I'm Deputy U.S. Marshal Terrence Cole. I'm here on federal assignment. Now let me see your badge." The prosecutor paused at that moment. Deputy Marshal Cole had to prove his credentials to be treated with dignity. He had to pull out a federal badge to establish that he belonged in a hotel lobby. A room key wasn't enough. A tailored suit wasn't enough. The only thing that mattered was his skin color, and for Officer Hannigan, that was disqualifying. Hotel employees testified under subpoena. They described the unwritten expectations, the pressure to monitor certain guests, the understanding that complaints from wealthy white patrons carried more weight than the dignity of black visitors. We were told to be attentive, one bellhop testified. But attentive meant different things for different guests. Cole testified in his Marshal Service dress uniform, 11 years of service displayed across his chest, Director's Award visible among the decorations. I've dedicated my life to law enforcement. I've apprehended fugitives who had hurt people, killed people, destroyed families. I've put my life on the line for a system I believe in. He paused, and I was interrogated in a hotel lobby for holding my own room key, because someone decided I didn't fit the clientele. His wife testified next. Monica Cole, federal prosecutor, 15 years with the Department of Justice. She described the call she received that night. The fear, the anger, the conversation with their sons about why Daddy had been stopped. My husband hunts the most dangerous people in America, and I have to worry about him being safe in a hotel lobby. Diane Mercer's deposition was played for the jury. Her attorney had advised against live testimony. The video was damaging enough. Why did you complain about Mr. Cole? He didn't look like he belonged. What does someone who belongs at the Langham look like? Silence. Mrs. Mercer? You know what I mean. I'd like you to say it. She didn't. The jury didn't need her to. Hannigan's attorney attempted the standard defense. Good faith response to a complaint. No way to know. Training deficiency. The prosecutor's rebuttal was surgical. He couldn't have known. Deputy Marshal Cole told him he was a federal officer. He showed him a room key. He invited verification through the front desk. Officer Hannigan didn't want to know. He had already decided. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Liable on all counts. All defendants. Damages against Officer Hannigan and the City of Chicago, $7 million. Damages against the Langham Chicago, $8 million. Damages against Diane Mercer personally, $3.9 million. Total, $18.9 million. The verdict made national news within the hour. The aftermath reshaped careers, institutions, and an industry. Officer Brett Hannigan was terminated the day after the verdict. His law enforcement certification was permanently revoked. The criminal charges that followed, civil rights violations under color of law, resulted in 2 years federal probation and 500 hours of community service. He would never wear a badge again. Gerald Patterson was terminated by the Langham Chicago. His pattern of calling police on black guests, documented across 3 incidents, made him unemployable in luxury hospitality. Diane Mercer faced the most personal consequences. The $3.9 million judgment forced her to liquidate assets. The vacation properties in Aspen and Martha's Vineyard sold to satisfy the verdict. Her name became synonymous with the kind of casual racism that destroyed lives while pretending to protect them. The Langham Chicago implemented comprehensive reforms. Mandatory anti-bias training for all staff. New protocols requiring guest verification before any law enforcement contact. A review board for complaints that pattern-matched previous incidents. The hotel settled a class action lawsuit from other black guests who had experienced similar treatment. Terms confidential, but the internal changes spoke to the scope of the problem. Deputy Marshal Terrence Cole distributed the verdict with purpose. $5 million established the Dignity in Service Foundation, supporting minority law enforcement officers facing discrimination. The organization would provide legal resources, counseling, and career support for those who protected others while being denied protection themselves. $2 million funded hospitality industry training programs on implicit bias, ensuring that front desk managers across the country would learn what Gerald Patterson never understood. The remaining funds secured his family's future. College savings for his sons. Security for Monica. The stability that service should have always guaranteed. The U.S. Marshals Service created the Cole Protocol, new guidelines for hotels housing federal agents on assignment. Properties that wanted government business would have to demonstrate anti-discrimination policies that prevented what happened at the Langham. 3 days after the incident, Deputy Marshal Cole led his task force to the successful capture of the escaped convict he had come to Chicago to find. The operation went flawlessly. The fugitive was apprehended without incident. The mission that had brought Cole to the Langham was completed with the same professionalism he had demonstrated in the lobby. 6 months after the verdict, he was promoted to Supervisory Deputy U.S. Marshal. He now oversees fugitive operations across the Midwest region, the same territory where he was once questioned for standing in a hotel lobby. Brett Hannigan works as a warehouse security guard in suburban Chicago. His applications to other law enforcement agencies have been automatically rejected. His uncle, the captain who helped him into the academy, took early retirement to avoid association with the case. The Langham Chicago is now recognized as an industry leader in hospitality equity training. The incident that destroyed its reputation became the foundation for reforms that rebuilt it. Deputy Marshal Terrence Cole still travels for federal operations. He still stays in hotels on government assignment. He still walks through lobbies with the confidence of a man who has apprehended 200 fugitives and faced down threats that make racist guests look trivial. His room key works the same as everyone else's. The difference is that now, everyone knows it. 11 years of service. 200 apprehensions. One incident that cost a hotel $8 million and taught an industry that black guests aren't suspicious, they're customers. The key card was never the question. The question was why anyone thought they needed to ask. Deputy Marshal Terrence Cole answered it. $18.9 million clearly.
I just walked out of a federal courtroom. What is this about?
We have reason to believe you may be in this country illegally.
I just told you I'm an attorney. Are you dumb?
Save the history lesson. You're being detained until we can verify your status.
You're about to be the next defendant in my civil rights lawsuit. Badge numbers, both of you. Now.
The federal courthouse was 50 feet away. Attorney Malcolm Bridges III had just walked out of a hearing where a judge ruled in his favor on key motions in his class action lawsuit against DHS. 47 families separated at the border, constitutional violations documented, senior immigration officials embarrassed. He was 3 cars from his Mercedes when 2 ICE agents intercepted him and demanded proof of citizenship. His grandfather had marched with Dr. King at Selma. His father had argued before the Supreme Court. His great-great-great-grandfather had fought in the 54th Massachusetts Regiment during the Civil War. 7 generations American. And in a parking lot adjacent to a federal courthouse, he was handcuffed and shoved into an unmarked SUV while his legal files scattered across the asphalt. The parking structure camera captured everything. The anonymous tip that triggered the stop was traced to an IP address inside an IC facility. Text messages revealed the coordination. Time to show this civil rights prince he's not untouchable. $5.2 million. 2 agents sentenced to federal prison. And an attorney who added his own case to the family legacy of civil rights victories. The Sam Nunn Atlanta Federal Center occupied a full city block in downtown Atlanta, home to the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Georgia. The kind of building where federal power was exercised, challenged, and occasionally held accountable. Malcolm Bridges III had been inside courtrooms like this for 16 years. Civil rights attorney. Founding partner of Bridges & Associates. Immigration rights, civil liberties, police misconduct. The cases others wouldn't take. The clients others wouldn't represent. Yale Law School. Order of the Coif. Former clerk for Justice Sonia Sotomayor. The credentials opened doors. The work kept them open. The family legacy opened more. His grandfather, Reverend Malcolm Bridges Sr., had marched with Dr. King at Selma. Founding member of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Beaten on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, fighting for voting rights. His father, Malcolm Bridges Jr., had argued 3 landmark cases before the Supreme Court. 1-2. Changed the law. The Bridges name appeared in constitutional law textbooks. Malcolm III wore his grandfather's civil rights movement pin on his lapel. Small. Vintage. A reminder of where the fight had started and why it continued. Today's hearing had been critical. Ramirez versus Department of Homeland Security. Class action on behalf of 47 families separated at the southern border. Constitutional violations. Due process failures. Children held in facilities without adequate care while parents were deported without hearings. The case had made national headlines. Senior DHS officials named as defendants. Internal documents exposing systematic disregard for legal requirements. Embarrassment that reached the cabinet level. Bridges had received threatening messages. Anonymous. Untraceable. Warnings to drop the case. Implications about what could happen to attorneys who challenged federal power. He hadn't dropped anything. The hearing had gone well. Judge Patricia Morrison ruled in his favor on key discovery motions. DHS would have to produce internal communications. The defendant's legal exposure had increased substantially. He exited the courthouse at 1:12 p.m. Charcoal, gray suit, burgundy tie, leather litigation bag over his shoulder, the pin on his lapel catching the October sunlight. The parking structure was adjacent to the federal building. His black Mercedes S-Class waited on the second level, 3 minutes to his car, then back to the office to prepare for the next phase. He didn't notice the unmarked SUV on the first level, didn't see the two men inside who had been waiting for over 2 hours. The anonymous tip had arrived at the ICE Atlanta field office at 10:47 a.m. It claimed an illegal alien attorney using a fake identity would be leaving the federal courthouse that afternoon. It provided a physical description. It suggested immediate action. Agents Victor Harmon and Dale Sutton had drawn the assignment. 9 years and 6 years with ICE enforcement and removal operations, respectively. They had parked where they could watch the courthouse exit. They saw Bridges emerge. They waited until he was deep in the parking structure. Then they moved. The parking structure security camera captured the encounter from above, mounted on a concrete pillar, wide angle, timestamp visible in the corner, 13 hours 15 minutes and 27 seconds. Bridges walked between rows of parked cars, keys in his right hand, litigation bag on his left shoulder. The Mercedes was 3 spaces ahead. 2 men in tactical vests marked HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, emerged from between vehicles and blocked his path. "Sir, we're with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. We need to verify your citizenship status." Bridges stopped. His expression shifted from confusion to assessment. The camera captured every micro-movement. "I'm sorry. I just came from a hearing inside. I'm an attorney." Agent Harmon stood directly in front of him. Sutton flanked from the left. "We've received information that someone matching your description is in this country illegally and practicing law under a false identity." Practicing law under a false identity. Bridges set his litigation bag down slowly. "I've been a member of the Georgia Bar for 16 years. I just walked out of a federal courtroom where I'm lead counsel on a civil rights case. Anyone can claim that. We need documentation. Passport, birth certificate, naturalization papers." Naturalization papers. Bridges' voice remained level. "I was born in Atlanta. Grady Memorial Hospital. 1973. My family has been American for 7 generations. We'll need to verify that. My grandfather marched with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. at Selma. My great-great-great-grandfather fought in the 54th Massachusetts Regiment during the Civil War. The Emancipation Proclamation freed my ancestors. How much more American would you like?" Harmon's expression didn't change. The camera captured his indifference. "Anyone can claim that. We need documentation." A woman 3 cars away had stopped beside her vehicle. Her phone was raised. Recording. Bridges noticed. He adjusted his position slightly, ensuring the parking structure camera had a clear angle. "I'm reaching for my wallet. I have identification." He moved slowly, right hand into his jacket pocket, produced his wallet, extracted 3 items. Georgia Bar card, photograph, name, license number, 16 years of good standing, Georgia driver's license, address in Atlanta, birth date confirming he was 51 years old, federal court identification badge, issued by the Northern District of Georgia, photo, name, clearance to enter the building he had just exited. He held all 3 up clearly. Georgia Bar card, driver's license, federal court ID. "I was just inside that courthouse 45 minutes ago." Harmon examined the documents, turned them over, held them up to the dim fluorescent light. "These could be fraudulent. You'd be amazed how sophisticated fake documents have gotten. Those are authentic federal and state identifications. You can verify them with a single phone call. We'll determine what's authentic." A man walking toward the stairwell had stopped. White, mid-60s, carrying a briefcase. His face showed recognition. "Malcolm? What's going on?" Bridges turned slightly. The man was Thomas Whitfield, another attorney, 30 years at the federal bar. "These agents are detaining me and questioning my citizenship, Tom. Outside the federal courthouse. Call my office. Call the news." Whitfield's phone was already in his hand. Sutton stepped toward him. "Sir, this doesn't concern you. It concerns me when federal agents are detaining a colleague in a parking lot. I know who Malcolm Bridges is. His grandfather was a civil rights icon. I don't care who his grandfather was. Bridges spoke directly toward the cameras, the security system, the bystander's phone, Whitfield's raised device. For the record, I am attorney Malcolm Bridges III. I am being detained by ICE agents who are demanding proof of citizenship despite valid identification. I am lead counsel on Ramirez v. DHS, a class action lawsuit against this agency. He looked at Harmon. This is about that case, isn't it? I'm suing your agency, and suddenly my citizenship is in question. Harmon reached for his handcuffs. Turn around. Hands on the vehicle. On what legal basis? I've shown valid identification. I've explained my presence. I've offered verification channels. You have no probable cause for detention. You're being uncooperative. I'm being accurate. Questioning unlawful authority isn't uncooperative. It's constitutional. Sutton moved first. His hand closed around Bridges' arm, aggressive, twisting, spinning him toward the nearest parked car. A gray Honda Civic belonging to someone else. Bridges didn't resist. 16 years of civil rights practice had taught him exactly how these encounters escalated, and how documentation became more valuable than defiance. I am not resisting. I am complying under protest with what I believe to be an unlawful detention. This is being recorded by multiple sources. His litigation bag fell from his shoulder. The clasp opened on impact. Files spilled across the asphalt. Court documents, motions, case notes for Ramirez v. DHS. The papers scattered between parked cars, some sliding under vehicles. The security camera captured the image. A distinguished attorney in a tailored suit, forced against a car, legal files at his feet. The federal courthouse visible through the parking structure's concrete columns. Handcuffs clicked around his wrists. I am a member of the Georgia Bar in good standing. I clerked for Justice Sotomayor at the Supreme Court. I have security clearance with the federal judiciary. None of this is consistent with someone in the country illegally. Save the history lesson. You're being detained until we can verify your status. Then verify it. Call the Georgia Bar. Call the federal court. Call anyone you want. I'll wait. Whitfield had his phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapidly. Yes, Malcolm Bridges. The parking structure. ICE agents. They're handcuffing him right now. Get someone down here. The bystander, a woman in her 30s, later identified as Carla Vinson, a paralegal at a downtown firm, continued recording. Her phone captured the closer angle that the security camera missed. Bridges' face, his composure, the pin on his lapel. An older white attorney approached from the stairwell entrance. Gerald Morrison, 68, semi-retired, returning from a probate matter. Do you know who that is? His voice carried across the structure. His grandfather marched at Selma. His father argued before the Supreme Court. Harmon turned. I don't care if his grandfather was George Washington. He's coming with us. On what charge? Immigration violation pending verification. He's a citizen. His family has been in this country longer than yours. Sir, step back or you'll be detained for obstruction. Morrison stepped back, but his phone was raised now. A third recording source. Bridges was guided toward the unmarked SUV on the first level. His gait was steady. His posture remained upright. The composure that had carried him through hostile depositions and contentious hearings held firm. The parking structure camera captured the final image before he entered the vehicle. His face through the rear window, calm, dignified, resolute. The federal courthouse visible in the background. The scattered legal files still on the asphalt where they had fallen. Sutton collected the documents and threw them into the SUV's cargo area. No organization. No care. Case files for 47 separated families, treated as debris. The vehicle pulled out of the parking structure at 1:23 p.m. Within 30 minutes, the footage from Carla Vinson's phone was uploaded to social media. Within 60 minutes, news crews were stationed outside the ICE Atlanta field office. Within 90 minutes, the first calls arrived from United States senators demanding to know why a civil rights attorney had been arrested in a federal courthouse parking lot. The story was already national news before Bridges' citizenship verification was complete. But the verification wouldn't take long. Malcolm Bridges III had never been anything other than American. The ICE Atlanta field office received its first congressional inquiry at 2:47 p.m. Senator Raphael Warnock's office. Then Senator John Ossoff. Then the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee. The verification process that should have preceded any detention was now occurring under extraordinary pressure. Birth certificate on file with Georgia Department of Public Health since 1973. Grady Memorial Hospital. Malcolm Bridges, 3. Parents: Malcolm Bridges Jr. and Evelyn Bridges, née Thompson. Both U.S. citizens. Social Security records continuous since 1973. Employment history documented. Tax returns filed for 49 consecutive years. U.S. passport issued in 1995. Renewed 4 times. Current passport valid through 2029. Travel history showing no immigration concerns. Supreme Court security clearance from 2002 to 2003. Background investigation conducted by the U.S. Marshal Service. Full access to chambers and secure areas during his clerkship with Justice Sotomayor. Federal court credentials issued by the Northern District of Georgia. Active since 2008. No disciplinary issues. Georgia Bar records confirming admission in 2008. 16 years of good standing. No complaints. No suspensions. The verification took 11 minutes. ICE Field Office Director Patricia Okafor reviewed the results personally. She had received calls from 3 federal judges, 2 senators, and the DOJ Inspector General's office, all within the same hour. Release him. Immediately. No processing. No documentation of detention. And someone explained to me how this happened. Bridges was uncuffed at 3:18 p.m., 2 hours and 3 minutes after his arrest. He was offered his litigation bag, files now in disarray, some pages bent or soiled from the parking structure floor. I'll need a receipt documenting everything that was in this bag when I was detained, and its current condition. Sir, we're releasing you. I understand. I'll also need the names and badge numbers of the arresting agents, the authorization for my detention, and any documentation of the tip that allegedly justified this encounter. Director Okafor appeared in the doorway. Mr. Bridges, I apologize for what happened today. This was a misunderstanding. This was not a misunderstanding. This was retaliation. I'm lead counsel on a lawsuit against your agency. An anonymous tip suddenly appears questioning my citizenship. That's not coincidence. That's coordination. We'll investigate. Yes, you will. So will the FBI. So will the Inspector General. So will my firm, which specializes in exactly this kind of civil rights violation. He adjusted his grandfather's pin on his lapel, knocked slightly askew during the arrest. Now, if you'll escort me to the exit, I believe there are some cameras waiting. The media presence outside the ICE facility had grown to over 50 cameras and reporters. National outlets, local news, international press covering the story as it spread. Bridges stepped out into the October afternoon. He didn't rush to the microphones. He walked with the measured pace of someone who understood that every step was now part of the historical record. He stopped at the cluster of microphones. He waited for the noise to settle. My grandfather, Reverend Malcolm Bridges Sr., was beaten on the Edmund Pettus Bridge in 1965. He was fighting for the right of Black Americans to be recognized as full citizens of this country. His voice was steady. The cameras captured every word. Today, 60 years later, his grandson was handcuffed in a parking lot and asked to prove he was American, in the shadow of a federal courthouse. While legal files for separated families scattered on the ground, he touched the pin on his lapel. How far have we really come? The questions erupted. He raised his hand. I won't be taking questions today, but I will be filing a federal civil rights lawsuit. And I will be completing the case I was working on when I was arrested, representing 47 families who were separated by the very agency that just detained me. He walked toward the car that had been brought by his firm. My family has been fighting this fight for 4 generations. Today proved why we can't stop. The FBI Civil Rights Division opened its investigation within 24 hours. The DHS Inspector General launched a parallel internal probe. The evidence streams converged rapidly. The parking structure security footage was secured first. Continuous recording from 1312 to 1326. Every moment documented. The interception, the demand, the handcuffs, the scattered files, the SUV pulling away. Carla Vinson's phone video provided the closer angle. 2 minutes and 47 seconds. Bridges' face clearly visible. The agent's tactical vests marked HSI. The audio capturing, I don't care if his grandfather was George Washington. Gerald Morrison's phone captured 31 additional seconds from a different position. Thomas Whitfield's brief recording added context about Bridges' attempts to identify himself. For independent recordings, no gaps in documentation. The anonymous tip became the critical evidence. ICE internal systems logged all incoming communications. The tip had arrived at 10:47 a.m. via the agency's online reporting portal. Text entry. No callback number. The content. Illegal alien attorney using fake identity. Will be leaving Sam Nunn Federal Center approximately 1 p.m. Wednesday. Black male, 50s, gray suit. IP address logging was automatic. The address traced to a terminal inside the ICE Atlanta field office. Someone within the agency had submitted the tip that triggered the detention of an attorney suing that same agency. Subpoenas followed. Email accounts, text messages, phone records. The digital forensics mapped the coordination. Agent Harmon's text messages were the most damaging. To Agent Sutton, 9:23 a.m. the morning of the arrest. Got something for today? Civil rights lawyer causing problems for the brass. Anonymous tip coming in. We're on it. Sutton's reply, the Ramirez guy? Harmon, time to show this civil rights prince he's not untouchable. Sutton, let's see him march his way out of this one. The reference to marching. The family connection. They knew exactly who Malcolm Bridges was. The verification of citizenship was never the purpose. The purpose was intimidation, retaliation, humiliation. Both agents had prior complaints in their personnel files. Harmon, 2 allegations of racial profiling during enforcement operations, both closed without discipline. Sutton, 1 complaint of retaliatory conduct against a witness in an immigration case, dismissed after the witness declined to pursue it. The pattern was documented but never addressed. The investigation expanded beyond the agents. Who had known about the tip before it was submitted? Who had assigned Harmon and Sutton to respond? Internal communications revealed coordination reaching 4 levels above the agents. Senior officials in the Atlanta field office had discussed the Bridges problem in emails. One message, sent 3 days before the arrest. Someone needs to remind these lawyers who they're dealing with. The sender was Deputy Field Office Director Raymond Calvert, named as a defendant in Bridges' class action lawsuit. Judge Morrison, presiding over Ramirez v. DHS, issued an emergency order demanding DHS explain the arrest of lead counsel. She threatened sanctions and potential dismissal of the government's defenses if retaliation was proven. The government's legal position collapsed within weeks. Federal prosecutors from the Public Integrity Section presented the evidence to a grand jury. The indictments followed the evidence chain. Agents Harmon and Sutton for civil rights violations, false arrest, and conspiracy. Deputy Director Calvert and 3 other officials for conspiracy and obstruction. The parking structure footage was played for the grand jury. The text messages were read aloud. The IP trace was explained. The indictments were returned unanimously. Bridges filed his civil lawsuit the same week. Bridges versus Harmon, Sutton, Calvert, et al., in the United States of America. Northern District of Georgia. The complaint was 73 pages long. The criminal trial proceeded first. United States versus Harmon and Sutton. The senior officials negotiated separate dispositions to avoid trial, plea agreements that included cooperation and testimony. The evidence presentation took 3 days. The parking structure footage was played in its entirety. The jury watched Bridges walk toward his car, watched the agents intercept him, watched the handcuffs applied, watched the legal files scatter. The text messages were displayed on screens. Time to show this civil rights prince he's not untouchable. Let's see him march his way out of this one. The IP trace documentation showed the anonymous tip originated inside ICE. The coordination was not alleged. It was proven. Carla Vinson testified about what she witnessed. I was walking to my car. I saw 2 men in tactical vests approaching a man in a suit. Something felt wrong. I started recording. What did you observe? They demanded his citizenship papers. He showed them his ID, his bar card. They said it could be fake. They handcuffed him. His papers fell everywhere. Thomas Whitfield testified about recognizing Bridges. I've known Malcolm for 20 years. His grandfather was Reverend Malcolm Bridges, a civil rights icon. His father argued before the Supreme Court. The idea that he was somehow illegal or using a fake identity was absurd. Gerald Morrison described shouting at the agents. I told them who he was. They said they didn't care if his grandfather was George Washington. Those were the exact words. Bridges testified on the fourth day. He wore his grandfather's pin. I've spent 16 years representing people whose rights were violated by the government. I never expected to become one of my own clients. Can you describe what you experienced? I was walking to my car after winning a hearing in my lawsuit against DHS. I was stopped by agents who demanded I prove my citizenship. I showed them valid identification. They called it fake. They handcuffed me. My case files, documents for 47 families who were separated from their children, were thrown on the ground. How did you feel? I felt what my grandfather must have felt on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. I felt what my ancestors felt when they were told they weren't fully American. In 2025, in a federal courthouse parking lot, the defense attempted to argue good faith. Anonymous tip. Standard procedure. No way to know the tip was fabricated. The prosecution's rebuttal was the text messages. They knew exactly who Malcolm Bridges was. They referenced his family. They planned to show him he's not untouchable. This wasn't a good faith response to a tip. This was targeted retaliation against an attorney suing their agency. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing followed 8 weeks later. The judge reviewed the pre-sentencing reports, the prior complaints, the pattern of conduct, the deliberate targeting of a civil rights attorney. You didn't just violate Mr. Bridges' rights. You attacked the legal system itself. You attempted to intimidate an attorney for representing clients against your agency. That strikes at the foundation of justice. Harmon, 2 years federal prison. Sutton, 2 years federal prison. The senior officials who had facilitated the conspiracy faced their own consequences. Deputy Director Calvert and 3 others resigned rather than face termination. Their pension calculations were adjusted to reflect the circumstances of their departure. For careers destroyed. The civil lawsuit settled before trial. The settlement negotiations lasted 6 weeks. The government calculated its exposure, the footage, the text messages, the IP trace, the pattern evidence. Trial would have meant more discovery, more internal communications exposed, more embarrassment. They settled for $5.2 million. Bridges accepted the terms. The money was not the point. The accountability was. His original lawsuit, Ramirez v. DHS, proceeded without further interference. Judge Morrison issued sanctions against the government for the attempted intimidation of counsel. The sanctions included adverse inferences on key factual disputes. The case settled 8 months after Bridges' arrest. $67 million for 47 families. Policy changes requiring documentation of family separation decisions. Enhanced oversight of detention facilities. New procedures for parental notification before removal. The families he had been fighting for when he was handcuffed received the justice the system had denied them. Bridges distributed his personal settlement with deliberate purpose. $3 million established the Reverend Malcolm Bridges Senior Freedom Fund, providing citizenship assistance, naturalization support, and legal defense for immigrants facing deportation. Named for his grandfather. Continuing his grandfather's work. $1 million funded scholarships for first-generation law students pursuing civil rights careers. The remaining funds secured his family's future and supported the firm's continued pro bono work. The parking structure footage was donated to the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture. It joined the permanent collection alongside photographs from Selma, artifacts from the civil rights movement, and documentation of the ongoing struggle for equality. A placard beside the display reads, Malcolm Bridges III, detained in a federal courthouse parking lot and asked to prove his citizenship. His family has been American for 7 generations. Bridges testified before Congress 6 months after the criminal convictions. The House Judiciary Committee. Hearing on civil rights enforcement and federal accountability. He wore his grandfather's pin. My great-great-great-grandfather fought in the 54th Massachusetts Regiment to preserve this union. My grandfather was beaten on the Edmund Pettus Bridge to secure voting rights. My father argued before the Supreme Court to expand civil liberties. And I was handcuffed in a parking lot and asked to prove I was American. He paused. The question isn't whether we've made progress. We have. The question is whether that progress protects everyone equally. It doesn't. Not yet. Agents Harmon and Sutton are currently serving their sentences at a federal prison camp in Alabama. They will be released in 18 months. Deputy Director Calvert works as a consultant for a private security firm. His federal pension was reduced by 40%. Attorney Malcolm Bridges III continues to practice civil rights law in Atlanta. Bridges and Associates has expanded to 12 attorneys. Their caseload includes immigration rights, police misconduct, and federal accountability matters. The firm's lobby displays 3 photographs. Reverend Malcolm Bridges Sr. at the March on Washington. Malcolm Bridges Jr. on the steps of the Supreme Court. Malcolm Bridges III walking out of the ICE facility, grandfather's pin on his lapel. For generations. One legacy. Unfinished work. The parking structure at the Sam Nunn Atlanta Federal Center still has the same security cameras, the same concrete pillars, the same fluorescent lights. Attorneys walk through it every day. Most don't think about what happened there. Some do. Malcolm Bridges parks in a different structure now. Not because he's afraid. Because the other structure is closer to his office. He still wears his grandfather's pin to court. Every hearing. Every trial. Every argument. It reminds him why the fight matters. And why it isn't over. 7 generations American. Still proving it. Still winning.